Hello, money makers, and welcome to Tea Time with RK. I am so excited for tonight's tea time, and I have a special conversation for you tonight. As many of you know, we are having an event on February 20th called Isolation Sucks, and it's a very serious event. It is geared towards helping the parents of children and young adults who are navigating the pitfalls of the pandemic. We're seeing a lot of unintended consequences from the pandemic, be it increased rates of depression, suicide, and additional needs for mental health resources. And so, this event that's coming on February 20th is going to be geared towards helping parents understand what resources are out there for them, some coping mechanisms, and things that they can use to bring some kindness, some grace, and some love to themselves and to their young people as we are all navigating this together. So definitely, if you have not RSVP'd, RSVP today. We have over 100 people who have said that they're going to be attending at this point, which is incredible. So very, very excited about this particular event and the impact that it will make. The more the merrier. And once our Zoom fills, everyone will be able to watch it via live stream. But if you would like to be a part of the Zoom event, I do suggest you RSVP now before it closes out. With that being said, I do want to get into this very special tea time. And so, my guest tonight, her name is Charise Harris, and she is the founder of Plan on Purpose. And so, I met Charise actually at the beginning of the pandemic through such an odd circumstance. And I want to share it with you because I think it's interesting how people come into your lives at different points in time when you need them. So, one of my good friends had reached out to me and said, there is a book club that you are going to want to be a part of. And all of my friends that know me know that I love to read, and it's absolutely my escape, for lack of a better way to put it. It's my escape. Okay. It's like the way that I can just decompress and, absorb information and learn about the world and learn about different cultures, especially if I can't go and visit them. And so Cherise was hosting or is hosting a book club for Black women, so we can come together and have a safe space and read together. And it has been phenomenal. We've read some incredible things, but that's how I met her. And I met her at the beginning of the pandemic, and I've shared with you guys quite vulnerably that I myself had a hard time with all of this. I had a hard time with the isolation, had a hard time with, just having a baby and now being the primary caregiver 24/7 to young children, 4-year-old twins, and a brand new baby, and having my career uprooted, my life uprooted, all of these things, right? So when Charisse came into my life, she saw me at a point where I was really having some deep inner conversations, right? And very vocal in a way that I had never been before, right? Like wondering like, so where do I stand when it comes to all of this? I was watching, what was happening when it came to Black Lives Matter and protests and some of the conversations that were happening after that. I was watching things from the political standpoint, and it really had me consider things like identity and, who I wanted to be and the impact that I wanted to make on others and how I wanted to serve others. And so I shared these things with Cherise. And so I give her that introduction because I find that, as a person, so everyone I highlight on Tea Time is an entrepreneur in one way or another, right? And Cherise helps people when it comes to planning and, building strategies when it comes to creating planners. She also has a podcast that you can listen to, and she has a fantastic show. But beyond that, I think that sometimes you meet people and you say like, I get why you came into my life, right? Like I get why we got introduced. And that was the case for Cherise. She really has just a huge heart and she cares about people. And that resonates when it comes to her work and how she helps people. So with that being said, I'm going to play for you a video that I did an interview of Charisse just a little bit ago. And it's actually for Isolation Sucks. So I'm tying it in tonight in that way because she's one of our speakers for Isolation Sucks as well. And I did this interview ahead of time because Charisse lives in Germany. She's currently stationed in Germany with her husband. And, the time difference is a little bit crazy. So expecting her to be on, I believe, at 1 o'clock in the morning was a little bit of an ask. So I did record this ahead of time. So that being said, I want to deliver this to you, and then I want to have another conversation with you, and I have another surprise for you after this interview, which is only a few minutes long. So here we go. Let's give it a shot. I want to ask you, from your perspective, what can parents do to hear their teenagers and young adults and to recognize any warning signs or, actively listen to what they're saying when they're saying it?
Well, I think one of the things that's really important during this time is first taking care of yourself. And the reason why I say that is one of the most important things is because we miss all kinds of things as parents when we're not there. Like we have those moments where I'm like, today I'm just not here. And that happens and that's okay. But you have to put your self-care as a high priority because there's no way you're going to be able to continuously see these things and really attach to them if you're tired, if you're overrun, if you're exhausted because you're playing catch up with your own body and playing catch up with your own mind, and some of those things may slip, and you'll wonder, oh, was I tired that day, or was I this, or was I that? So do the best you can to take care of yourself. The second thing I would say is we all know our children. We know from when they're little, when you hear different cries, what they mean. And I think the misconception is as they get older, we somehow miss these things that they do because it's not, well, I just don't know them anymore. But I think deep down, we all know our children and we know the things that are abnormal. Talk with them, have the conversations that are uncomfortable. Ask, even if it's every day, what's going on? How are you feeling today? And really listen to what they say. Because there are a lot of kids right now. I have younger cousins, siblings, and people that I talk to that have older children that are really struggling. I mean, they're really struggling with this idea that they can't do the things that are normal to them. And I don't know about you, but I remember being a teenager, and I remember things like prom, and I remember homecoming, and I remember, hanging out with my friends and having more and more freedom to do the things that I wanted to do. I remember having a job. I remember all of these different things. And right now, thinking about me at that age, all of those things were so important to me. They were everything. Going to school, seeing my friends was everything. So even though it may seem trivial to some of us, like, okay, well, you can just do homeschool, you'll see your friends later. Like some of them are really struggling, even as young as like middle school, elementary school, they're struggling. So just understanding that it's difficult for you, it's difficult for them, and finding ways to connect with them and meet them where they are. I've seen parents do things like, get on TikTok with their kids and do these dances and fun activities where maybe you couldn't, hang out with your friends and do this, but you can do some of these things, video chatting and having, fun with them. Talk to them, find ways to connect with them, and don't be afraid to meet them where they are because that's where they're struggling. And not every teenager has the emotional stability or intelligence to really say exactly what it is. I will give it to them though. They're a lot more emotionally intelligent than I think I was at that age. So definitely credit to these young kids because some of them are just saying things they're like, what? Like, you talking about generational curses? You're like 16. But in real life, it just we just need to listen and we need to actively listen. And doing that just even in the smallest way, letting them know that you hear them. I believe when it's time for them to really open up, they'll be more apt to do so because you're listening and they know you're listening. There's no way that you can see or hear every single thing. So just trust and know that if you're pouring into them, that they feel it, and be confident in your parenting and knowing that, you know what, I'm going to do the best that I can, especially, during this time. Give yourself grace, give your kids grace, and know that while this may not be forever, it is definitely tough on everyone, and it's okay.
Hello, everybody. So, you just watched Charise Harris, and she talked about some of her experiences, and that's just a piece of the conversation that we're going to have on February 20th at 12 noon for Isolation Sucks. So I hope that you all join us. And if you know someone, you have a friend that is, navigating this, that has young children or teenagers or young adults, please feel free to share this with them. I think that the more people that know about it, the better. The event is currently at, I think about 100 people have signed up. So if you would like to be a part of the Zoom, now is a great time to enroll so that you can be a part of the Zoom. But aside from that, I'm so excited for that event. I wanted to share with you something that we do in Money Flow Mentors. It's a new phenomenon for us, and it is called hashtag days. And so each day of the week, we are focusing on a different hashtag to help us when it comes to just facilitating conversation, but also, I think, being human and showing where we are at any particular point in time. So Fridays is hashtag Friday reflection. And what had been on my mind is, so I went through this journey of paying off debt, and I paid off a large sum of debt in a short period of time, and it was really hard. Okay. It wasn't easy, and I didn't have a support system like this, right? Because I was embarrassed of my circumstance, but not just was I embarrassed, but I was also just uncomfortable with where I was. And so I posted on my page on Money Flow Mentors today this graph, and it's called the process of transition. It's also known as adoption of change. Okay, and so I would use this chart, this methodology, to teach leaders or future managers or future supervisors, leaders in a capacity. I would teach them what it truly means and what people go through when we create change as leaders. So companies or entrepreneurs or leaders will look at a situation and say, I want to get from point A to point B, and it must be a streamlined event, right? There should be no changes or flows or zigzags. It's going to be from point A to point B with nothing else in between. And unfortunately, that's not how people work. So people are real and they have feelings and they have to accept and understand where things are, what things are happening, and build acceptance. And so there are things that happen on that journey. Okay, so people are going to go through these things: anxiety, happiness, fear, threat, guilt, disillusion, denial, depression, hostility, and finally gradual acceptance and moving forward. But it takes a moment to get through that journey. And so in the group today, I shared that for me, my experience paying off this debt was like a roller coaster. It didn't even feel like just this gradual, beautiful curve. It felt like, okay, I'm at guilt. I'm going to go back to fear, or I'm going to go to anxiety, or I'm going to loop to loop here, right? And so I say this because I think it applies in so many ways. One, for you entrepreneurs out there, it applies because if you're working with yourself or with a team and you put a plan into motion or a strategy into motion, you have to work through all of these feelings to get from point A to point B. If you are a parent, or you're just someone that's navigating all the fear and the the loneliness and the isolation of the pandemic, you're also going through these things. So let me tell you my example. I've been talking to a lot of people about isolation and about depression and about loneliness and about like what's happening with their children and how are they navigating this and how are they teaching them and keeping them like how are they doing all the stuff, right? Because there's so much stuff. And when you don't have as much a support system as what you may have had before, it's difficult. So what I tell you for that is like more grace, more grace, more grace. Just give yourself some grace right now because this is not normal times. But what was interesting is when I had this conversation, the person I was talking to had shared that so when the back in March, right? Like when we found out something was wrong, there was like some anxiety. There was some anxiety there. Like I think this doesn't feel very good. And then like we got a little bit deeper in, and then all of a sudden it was like, okay, it's a little bit of happiness because like we're going through something, but this is like a mini vacation. So most of us can be home and let's take up a new hobby. People started knitting, people started working out that had not been working out for years. People were running outside, riding their bikes, like it was like a moment, right? And then all of a sudden we're like, this was supposed to be like a week or two, and it's not anymore. So then it became fear, and then it became threats, and then all of a sudden, like there might be this feeling. And one of the things that's been happening for me lately, like, is guilt. Am I doing enough as parents and anyone? It doesn't matter if you're a parent or not. Okay, so if you're not a parent, it doesn't matter. You still have these feelings. But I tell you from my experience right now because this is my reality. So I just have to give it to you in the way I know best. And that is that like as parents I constantly feel like, am I doing enough? Am I doing enough school time? Am I teaching them enough? Are they getting enough? Are they, playing enough? Are they happy? Like, am I cleaning the house enough? Am I cooking enough? Like all this stuff. So there's always this question of, am I doing enough? Right? And then there's this underlying guilt there. So I feel like this process of transition or this adoption of change aligns to so many things. And if you think about it, these are actually the stages of grief. Okay? So this would be an interesting conversation or an interesting tool to perhaps use with like your young adults or your teenagers to kind of have that open fluid conversation. I'm curious what they might think of that, right? So just a resource, a different way to think about it. I wanted to give that to you. And what I wanted to do is something a little bit special. So tonight, I'm going to be playing this video of an interview I did for Isolation Sucks of Marc Mero. And Marc Mero is a speaker, one of the best speakers in the world on anti-bullying, suicide prevention for young people. Okay? And so he gained his passion for serving young people because he himself had so many different things that he had to navigate as a young person, a young adult, right? And his story is truly incredible. He was a professional world wrestler, a world renowned wrestler, and then has dedicated his life to helping young people. And so I'm going to play that video for you now and give you access to him in this way. He's one of our speakers for Isolation Sucks, and I think you're going to be really impressed by his conversation. So, Mark, my first question for you today revolves around your background and where this passion grew for you when it came to, helping young adults and helping teenagers with anti-bullying efforts, suicide prevention. Where did this passion come from?
Wow, there's no greater joy than making another person happy. And I often tell people, you want to be happy, help someone else become happy. You want to be successful, help someone else become successful. Given why you're living, so you're knowing where it's going. And I don't know, I've just found this amazing passion, this gift that I've found this joy in life. I've succeeded at so many things in life, through sports and financially and things. And I never really found true happiness until I was able to make other people happy. I'm not talking about entertaining people. I'm talking about making a difference in somebody's life and changing someone's life, even saving a life. That's where I found that real joy and that passion. Where when I started this program 14 years, going on 15 years now, it's been the most incredible journey I could have ever imagined. And it's so I guess finding this joy and this passion was a lot easier than most people think. People are always looking at happiness as some destination, where it's really in life, it's a journey. And it's a choice in life. I can wake up every day and think about how miserable things are and what bills I owe and what I have to do and get stressed out and build this incredible anxiety. Or I could just be so blessed and think of the blessings and the joy and the happiness I have in my life. And it really is a struggle inside. There was an old Indian saying that it said we have two wolves that live inside of us. There's a positive wolf and a negative wolf. And the one wolf that becomes the most powerful is the one you feed the most. And I often ask people, what wolf are you feeding? Is it negativity and depression and anxiety, or is it joy and peace and hope?
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. Marc, when it comes to your background and your childhood, what were some of the obstacles or opportunities that you yourself faced to get where you are today?
Well, I think like many people, and I think that's why students have really related to my story, because so many young people grow up in a broken family. My parents got divorced when I was 8 years old. And I remember the feeling of my dad leaving and the trauma it brought to us kids and to our household and what we were going to do without dad in the house. And it was really traumatic. And we lived in one of the worst gang and drug infested neighborhoods in the west side of Buffalo, New York. And I just remember just feeling that being scared and being, not having hope and wondering what's going to happen next. And that's why I could relate to kids today that talk to me about, tell me their stories, and how I got through that and how I just started dreaming big and writing my goals and dreams down as a little boy, and then pursuing those passions in life and goals in life and wanting to make a difference in my life, which ended up making a difference in my family's life.
If I may ask, Marc, what inspired you? I know many people know you from your background as a pro wrestler. What inspired you to go into pro wrestling, and how did that impact you on your journey towards where you are today as one of the top speakers in the world on anti-bullying and suicide prevention?
Well, I was very successful in sports. I was an all-state or all-star in football and hockey and boxing. I won the New York State Golden Gloves year after year in boxing. So I was very successful in sports. And it was this period of my life that I started just surrounding myself with the wrong people. And that's what I share with people is we become who we surround ourselves with. Your friends, they're like elevators. They're either going to take you up or they're going to take you down. And I often tell people, you show me your friends, I'm going to show you your future. And I learned the hard way. And that's why I'm able to share these stories and be totally honest of where those bad choices took me. And it was 10 years of drug addiction and making the wrong decisions and hanging out with the wrong people and getting into a lot of trouble that I was I had a bunch of friends over my apartment. And one of my buddies, he had the remote control for the television. He was flipping through the TV channels and he landed on professional wrestling. And I was looking at that and they call the aha moment in life, that overwhelming feeling you might get when you see something and you go, and I remember just saying, hey guys, I could do that. And they busted out laughing. They're like, look at the size of those guys. Marc, they'll pick you over their head and they'll throw you right out of that ring. I said, no, I'm being serious. I can do that. Now, remember, I'm 30 years old at this point in my life. And one of my friends said to me, he goes, Marc, you're 30 years old. What are you going to do? Start a pro career now? And I just said, yeah, I believe. It was the first time I remember saying that. I believe. I found out where there was a wrestling school. It was about an hour away. I started driving there after work on weekends. 1 year later, I signed a huge contract with World Championship Wrestling as the character they called Johnny B. Bad. And I guess the rest is history through the ups and downs of life. And again, fame and fortune can be a blessing or it can be a real lesson in life. And I learned some major lessons from earning a lot of money very quickly and blowing a lot of money and making some terrible decisions in life, and I think that was so cool. There's three ways you can gain wisdom. You gain wisdom from mentors, your parents, coaches. You can gain wisdom from books and DVDs, or you can gain wisdom from mistakes. I'm the king, okay, the king of mistakes. And that's why I can share with students and they go, oh my gosh, I can't believe that guy could be that honest about his life and share where those bad choices took me, because through all those bad choices, you pass failure on your road to success. And man, I failed a lot of times and made some horrible mistakes and I hurt a lot of people in my life. And through asking for forgiveness, forgiving other people that may have hurt me in my life, it really opened up those doors of success, and joy in my life is not carrying bitterness, resentment, and anger into new relationships and new friendships and new business ventures, because you'll never find happiness. And people often ask me, Mark, how do you know when you have forgiven somebody? And I tell you, it's really easy. It's when they mention their name and you don't get angry anymore. It's when you know you've forgiven them.
I love that. I love that. That's a great way to gauge where you are when it comes to some pain that you may have from other people. I love that. So we understand that the pandemic has been unprecedented. This is something that we've never experienced in our lifetimes, both as adults, and we see the impact on adults with record unemployment rates and millions of people. The lines for the food lines are incredible, miles long, for people trying to just be able to take care of their families, right? So the stress on parents in particular is astounding, but we also see some huge consequences on our young people, our teens, our young adults who have had their lives completely uprooted in a very quick period of time. What are some of your thoughts there on the consequences of the pandemic on these young people and as they try to navigate it? What are you seeing?
Well, I have never received more letters and messages through social media than I do now from students that are really suffering from depression, isolation, loneliness, and then even suicidal thoughts. And I just have seen, it's never been higher in recorded history of talking about depression, anxiety. They've never seen it as bad as it is right now. It's something that we really have to discuss and be open about. Many schools, they have a counselor that can maybe help you get into a college or share what classes you need to take or talk about, bullying in school and some things. But we really need mental health specialists, people that understand what students are going through. And especially many students are on medication now. When you have a student on Adderall, you have to understand how you deal with someone that's on a drug that's altering them from acting a certain way and what the consequences of different drugs are. There's so much more that not just a counselor can deal with, but maybe a mental health specialist that can deal with many of these things. I try to give kids hope. Every time I talk to them, I remind them how special they are, because see, we often tend to think of worst case scenarios. What happens if we never go back to school and I'll never have friends or I'll never be able to do this, and we build obstacles in our mind that are often not there, because most of our worries and problems are over exaggerated and often never happen or never as bad as we envision them to be. So I really try to bring a positive spin to things. I hate to say this in a sense that when I look at this pandemic, it's been a blessing in my own life. Now, what I mean by that is that, sure, I know we've all gone through some really hard times. It's been hard on me. I've done, for 14 years, I've been averaging about 230 events a year. So I'm on the road all the time. I mean, I'm living out of hotel rooms. I'm going from school to school, corporation, churches, or wherever I'm speaking at. And it was like a nonstop thing. And then when the pandemic hit, it was almost like, like many adults, like how am I going to, survive? What am I going to do? Your first, again, you go into that maybe depression or anxiety or worry. And then I started thinking, I've been on the road for 14 years, and as busy as I am, making a living, I'm missing out on making a life. In other words, I've not been as close to my family as I probably should have been. We travel the world in search of what we think we want, only to come home and find it, and then sometimes it's too late. So I decided to pack my bags and move from Florida to Georgia to be closer to my family. And I've been spending so much time with them, and it's just been an incredible journey. And so taking this time that I often would have never had, and making this incredible life out of it. Now, don't get me wrong, I can't wait to go back to schools, and I'll probably never have such a busy schedule where I ever end up like that again, where I'm so busy that I don't have time for family and friends. So there's a big lesson there to be learned. But on the other side, what we talked about is the students that are going through this depression and anxiety is we have to give hope. We have to, it's so easy to surround yourself with a lot of negative people. And often sometimes friends or family member, or we just constantly talk about how bad it is and what are we going to do? And it's like then, the whole house, it falls into depression, where I try to bring a student or a parent or someone in that household to be a light, to be the one that said, man, it's going to get better. Look at the time we have to spend together. We never had this time before. We always said, parents would say to me, man, if I only had the time to do this or do that. Well, in a way, you got to be careful what you wish for, because many of us have that time. Put away the darn cell phones at dinner time. I'm telling you, there's times I will have dinner with friends and I watch their kids and everybody's on cell phones or earbuds or something. It's like, turn off the technology. Let's communicate with each other. Let's find out about what you did today, where you went, what you're thinking about, what's your future goals, what are your plans. We're missing out on so much. This smartphone here, it's actually outsmarted us.
That's fantastic, Mark. And I think you even went into like my next piece for you was really like what can parents do? What are some of the things that they should be listening for or looking out for? How can they just bring their teens and their young adults closer to them right now as we navigate this? Because unfortunately, this is our reality for at least a few more months, right? For at least a few more months.
At least, I read a horrible story today on social media. One of my friends sent it over to me, and what happened was parents went out with their kids just last night, and they had a great walk in the snow, and they were laughing and kidding around with each other. And their young son ended up taking his life. And what was so sad about reading this is that they never saw it coming. They never saw any signs, or they didn't really see, typical teen depression or, going in your room and listen to music or whatever, but they didn't really see those signs that he was at a point where he wanted to end his life. And so what I take from that is, parents, we have to have open conversation. We have to have that time. And I'm not talking about busting their room when they're playing video games or something. That's not always the time. Take a time when there's just time to really talk, where you could sit down, look each other in the eye and just say, hey, how are you doing? Hey, I see so many young people that are going through some hard times. How are you dealing with it? What's your thoughts? Do you ever feel depressed? Do you feel lonely? Talk to dad about it. Tell me what you're going through, because I felt depressed at times. I felt lonely. Don't sometimes parents always want to be the, that never would affect me. And, we have to show vulnerability. We have to show that we're human. We make mistakes. We feel lonely. We get depressed. We suffer from depression or anxiety. We all go through something. And I think why I've connected with students is they see that part of me that I'm open to talk about these things. I'm not afraid to say that I've battled depression. I battled suicidal thoughts. I've gone through some really hard times. Losing my little brother and sister. They both died at 21. My mom died at 58. My dad died while I was holding my arms. So I understand the anxiety and depression and sadness that we go through in this life, this roller coaster of life, But we have to take away the beautiful things in life that are important. And the most important thing in life is relationships. Keep your relationships strong. Keep your family close to your heart. Don't let people drift out of your life that meant so much at one time. Make that phone call, write that email, write a letter, spend time with things that are truly important. Because I promise anyone that's listening to this, when that day that you're on your deathbed, you are not going to care how many followers you had on social media. You're not going to care what someone said about you or thought about you. You're only going to ask for your family, relationship, your husband, your wife, your kids, your parents, whatever it is. Keep those things close to your heart in life.
And I hope you enjoyed the video. So I want to end here. I want to end here that we are in this together. Okay? And so I know that my journey for you is to help you find financial freedom and financial independence. But how can you focus on money if you're worried about your young people in your life? So I have to broaden my conversation. And I know that like there's probably some conversations of like, well, what is your lane? Like where do you are? And I just don't believe in putting limitations on myself. So that's what I gotta say to y'all that question in it. I don't believe in limitations. I believe that we need to have the conversations that we need to have and help the people in a way that serves them best so that people can elevate their lives. Okay. And so I want you to be able to transform your life, especially when it comes to money. But to be able to do that, I also need your focus. And if you're worried about your kids, it's going to be hard to put your focus there. So that's why I give this to you. There are so many young people that are hurting. And I had initially thought this was going to be for teenagers and young adults. I'm hearing stories of 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds who are really hurting. So that's where that's coming from. February 20th, RSVP link will be in the item below, so you'll have it there, okay? And then I just want to end on that note and let you know that we have 10 days for the Rock the Budget challenge. It's coming. It's going to be amazing. 5 days of intensive training with me every evening, and the live replays will be available. RSVP today so you can get the details and you'll get all the Zoom invites and going to be part of the conversation when it's happening. So with that being said, I hope you guys have a great night and I will see you next time.